So in the next two videos, I want to go through a little bit more thoroughly the idea of hobo stoves. Just really, really simple stoves that you can use in a huge variety of like survival situations. And, you know, if you're basically a hobo, which I am, I mean, I drive around in a truck, but uh, I kind of live like one anyway. And I sort of model all my principles of like how would you get by uh, you know, if you're basically really, really poor, which is true for me as well. And I've been for, you know, a very long time. It's just sort of ingrained in the way that I approach life. I'm not quite a survivalist. I try to, though I borrow a lot of principles from survivalists and backpackers, I just try to keep things as simple as I can given my situation, and maybe you can relate too, since you're somebody who, you know, has expressed interest in, you know, the kinds of stuff that I do, living off grid and all that sort of thing. So with a hobo stove, we're talking about it's a lot more than a particular recipe of a style of cook stove. You can make them out of virtually anything, and the purpose of this particular video, so like in the next video, I'll show you more about how I construct my own hobo stove and what you could do. A particular design that's very popular and also will allow you to use it as part of the little kit that I'm teaching you how to make. In this video, I'm just going to introduce you to hobo stoves and how you make them, how you use them, just in general, just to get your thinking out of the box more than it's just like a recipe. You get a certain type of can and make a certain type of hole. No, it's not really like that. The idea of a hobo stove is that no matter what you got, you can make a stove out of it. And that's really the entire idea behind a hobo stove. So, like, let's say that I want to cook this for dinner, and this is kind of all I got, along with, you know, my backpack and a couple other supplies. Like I have a can opener, you know, we're thinking like a hobo here, and just a couple other things. I got a lighter, I got some newspaper, and how can I make myself a fire? I happen to be at a place right now with a little bit of wood. Let me see if I can scrounge up just a little bit of some twigs and stuff. That probably ought to do it. A couple more. I'm trying to watch out for cactus, which are sometimes littered on the ground here. And that probably ought to do it. I think these can of beans will take a little longer to cook than, say, like a can of soup. That'll usually cook up a little faster, I think. Actually, I'm not really sure. Depends what you're looking for. So, that ought to do it. That looks like some good kindling, and I don't think I have any cactus needles in here, so that's good. Although there are other little thorny things, but they're not bad right now. They're dried up enough. Okay, so let's get started. How would we do this? So, I'm going to cook this. So, obviously, just in order to eat the food, I'm going to have to open it up. But then what we're going to do after I open it up, put the food away, is we're going to use this can to start everything up. We're going to turn this can into our stove. And while you're thinking of that, imagine that no matter what kind of can you find, if you're in some type of survival or situation, or you know, you're a hobo, then just find any can lying around, you can turn it into a hobo stove. So obviously this is not as big as the stoves that I've been using. This is a small can. You might also try like for more like a one-time use situation, something like just, you know, a Pepsi can, beer can, or something like that. That will work as well. Though they'll tend to crush and you won't be able to use them as many times, but still very usable. So let's do this. Let's see, where's my spoon at? Bring it. There we go. So we'll just shovel this into there, or maybe it'll come out on its own. Oh, there it comes. Plop. How satisfying is that? Plop. Smash it down into there to get all the liquid out, so it doesn't give us a wet fire. Okay, we'll put that away. Whoops. A little can lid here that I can just use for that. Okay, how do we turn this into a stove? All we got to do is make a ring of holes around the top, a ring of holes around the bottom. A Hobo Stove basic design. That's all we need to do. And we can also, this would be a good thing in general so that our outside doesn't catch fire and accidentally burn us. Let's take it off. But that also means that we have an extra little bit of tinder as well. Something to easily catch fire. Oh, this one's coming off very neatly. It seems like it's glued on all over the place. So I'll just tuck that under here for now. Alright, now we take this, and all we have to do is throw holes in the top. So there we go, made some holes. The same thing on the bottom. There happens to be a nice groove on this can. A lot of times you have a reinforced bottom, makes it really, really easy. This happens that this has a curved bottom, but it also has good ridges on there that makes it really easy. So if you're evaluating cans, there's many varieties of cans that you can investigate for your projects. So I actually spent a long time in the canned food aisle when I first got into this, learning about all the different types of cans, sizes, features of different ones. And actually it was a long time ago. I don't remember all the different cans. I kind of got my can design and I stuck with it, or my stove design. Haven't really needed it since. But there we go. So there's our basic stove, and then we start it anyway, the same way we'd start any campfire. You got to start with some tinder, get your smaller twigs kindling, and then we have like full-size twigs. We do not need to get logs like we would with a normal campfire, and that's one of the huge benefits of that. We can have a very small contained fire just to cook our food. It's not going to keep us warm all night or anything like that, though there's possibly ways that you could set up some heat reflectors or something like that too. So we'll do this. Let's try this tinder out first, since we have it. If necessary, we'll add some newspaper. Make it into good strips that allow a lot of airflow. The thing that can kill your fire and or create a lot more smoke than you were looking for is if you plug it up or find other ways to constrict the fire or cool it down. Let's just use this. Let's see. Let's get some newspaper ready just in case. Let's see. Let's get all of our fire stages ready. Going to be a lot more than needed. Let's save this because it's overkill. Such a small little can, we don't need that much. Okay, now we'll start separating these out into larger stuff. This is the stuff that we want to ultimately get burning. Once that's going, then we can start cooking. So you can think of how short of a time when you're making a campfire, you know, how quickly you can get these going. That's how quickly we can start cooking. want to make them small. If you remember the pellet video, great thing about pellets is, besides being convenient and cheap, but they're sort of an ideal fuel source for this type of cooking ware, because where's this? Because they're like an ideal size in terms of a air to fuel ratio. And I don't mean like in terms of an internal combustion engine. I'm talking about how much fuel can you fit in there versus having it, how much air is allowed to flow through here. So the thing about pellets is that they're kind of an optimal ratio. They basically, you can stuff a whole bunch in there and still have enough air coming through there, just the right amount of air to keep your fire going at a steady, consistent rate. And steady and consistent is the whole key. That's not the whole key. Actually, it's a big part of getting your fire so that it's relatively smoke-free. When you have really irregular stuff, like these twigs and stuff that we're using, they're really irregular, and you have a lot of random holes, so like air will randomly pop up, and when that happens irregularly, then it will cool down your flame and create smoke. The reason why you have smoke is stuff that's not burnt. If it burns properly, if you have a really hot fire that burns everything, you won't have any smoke. And that's the principle behind a different type of stove you might have heard of called a rocket stove, that burns so hot that it just burns everything away with hardly any emissions. Although our gasifier stove can also operate extremely efficiently with hardly any emissions as well, by doing something completely different. Okay, so yeah, this ought to do it. Alright, so let me just do this. Catch some things on fire, drop it in there. See how little we can get away with. Oh, it didn't actually drop all the way down in there. Okay. So as soon as that's burning really, really hot, I'm going to start dropping some of the tiny kindling in there. Some people might even consider it tinder because it's so small, but no, it's not tinder. Tinder needs to be small enough to catch a spark, and that's not quite this. Okay, you can see I just put it out. I put part of the fire out, but it's catching. So I got to do it at a slower rate. Start to hear it now as the wood is really catching. Pockets of air. Okay, and as we go up in levels, then the fire will start to burn hotter and hotter. And the hotter the fire is burning, the more it gives us permission to move up to the next level. I think we still need a little bit more of this. I don't think we're quite there yet. Just a little bit more. Start dropping twigs in there. Okay, looks like I put it out, so let's put more paper in there. See if we can catch those twigs. Okay, got the paper again. Okay, so it looks like it wasn't quite hot enough before we started moving up. Okay, so let's try kindling again, and that was a piece of cactus. Didn't feel good. Let's try not to put the flames out this time. Did a little bit. Ooh, got the label on the outside. Some of the glue is starting to burn away from the camera on this side. Okay, that seems like it's burning pretty fast. Try one twig. going? It's kind of going. So, we're like making a little tiny fire here. A little tiny campfire. So really, like if you're unfamiliar with the principles of setting fires, make yourself a little tiny contained fire. Definitely a very safe way to do it. Oops, down in there. Safe, easy way to do it. And if ever started going out again, I just start over the process over with more smaller stuff. Okay, now at this point it looks like it's going. No, actually I should load it a little bit more because it's not going to finish if I just leave it there. Let's add some more. Got enough of like a cross thing going on that I can keep adding these, and there'll be a lot of air holes still without putting the fire out. So this sure beats going out and gathering firewood, right? Okay, I think it's something got messed up there. Let's do that. That's more paper. I think I was basically adding so much that it was restricting the airflow. So that's always going to be an issue. But it's burning hot enough that there's really no, there's only a little bit of smoke. So that's always a really good sign. Okay, now what we can do is we can add this, and let's make sure it doesn't go out. Good. So the wind is kind of blowing this way, so you might not be able to see the flames, but I think you can. Flames coming out of that side. And the reason why you suddenly see a lot of smoke now is two things. One is that the pot is cooling down the air. Oh, jeez. I didn't know the wind was blowing this way. There's so little of it, it's hard to tell. So we finally got the smoke, and this is why I don't like hobo stoves in general. Okay, so is it still going? Okay. There wasn't enough air. So it shut down because there's not enough air. So let's do this again. Ooh, smoke in my eyes. So if this was a frequent issue, I would add a little pot stand of some kind. But those little holes down there are designed so you shouldn't need a pot stand. Okay. Definitely the wrong camera angle. Just keep adding little pieces of paper. Okay, there's still fire in there. You can see it. It's just not behaving as well as I'd like. I can see it and I can hear it. All right, so the video cut out because the battery got low. I'm still here stoking this fire, and I think we could probably kind of finish the video up right now. It's kind of working, but just like a regular campfire, we're gonna have to keep on like stoking it, throwing stuff in there, throwing more twigs. You know, it might be that if I use pellets or something, it would be able to get it burning a little bit better. You know, especially if I had some luxuries and stuff like lighter fluid. But this is a hobo stove and demonstrating a hobo situation and the idea that you can take any kind of anything and make it in a stove. But with certain designs, you might run into difficulties like this. A little bit too much smoke, really a lot of difficulty that makes it so you have to keep on stoking the fire, throwing stuff in there, throwing wads of paper in there. And, you know, it makes it not much different than a regular campfire, really. If you're the type of person who likes fussing with your fire, then by all means. I'm sure you know people who are like that. If you're not like that yourself, it's certainly fun. Practice a little bit of pyromania, setting, just practicing your fire making skills. And I mean, we've gone over what the basic principles are here, and the main limitation that we're facing that was causing all this smoke and the difficulty lighting is that we just don't have enough air. Air is the missing ingredient, just like in the gasifying stove. You can get it hot inside to release the gases, but if you don't have, but you need to reintroduce the air in order to combust the fire, and it's just not happening in this little tiny can. While it's usable, we can get the fire going, we can keep stoking it, and it certainly doesn't require any logs or anything like that. We can make this little tiny fire with a bunch of little twigs that we can find, and it's really very amazing just that we can do that. So, what can we do? You know, there's a lot of advantages of these hobo style stoves that are really, really simple. All we need to do is just make a slightly bigger can, and we could get many more benefits. In fact, if we made an even bigger can, we would run into difficulties like, you know, storing it. You know, you wouldn't store a big can like this in your backpack. And though you might be able to carry something like that in a camper. If you wanted to do that, it would, you know, if you wanted to use bigger logs or something, because maybe you were planning on getting boiling big pots of water, hey, that's something you could do too. You know, you can get a big can, you can surround it with bricks and stuff for insulation. Those are all good ideas. That was pretty much completely out. But, you know, if I kept on stoking it, we could get this fire going enough that I could actually warm these beans up. Yeah, so basically in the next couple videos, we're going to be making actual stoves that work much better than this little one here. You know, using the same principles, just with slightly better engineering. And one of the engineering choice we make is just choose something bigger that allows more room to breathe. Literally, the fire needs air, so we'll get something bigger that allows a little bit more air in there, and it'll work much better just for your basic hobo stove design. And even if you think maybe, yeah, I don't want to use a hobo stove, we'll just skip it, go to the gasifier. Well, I'm going to make a hobo stove anyway, because I actually do use it, not necessarily for this purpose. I don't know if you've ever used this or reminded of the design of just having a cylinder like this with holes at the bottom, holes at the top for starting your barbecue coals, a charcoal starter. That's what you can use it for. And we have ways to cook with charcoal that I use off the grid as well. So I definitely use my hobo stove for that purpose, as well as maybe a side stove, but that's very rare. In fact, once I do this with you, I'll have two stoves, so I won't need to worry about doing that again. But starting charcoal, that's another purpose that we could use it for, as well as using it for our extra chimney that makes our gas fire work that much better. All right, so I'll see you in the next videos.